today for this ADSS webinar on living alone with dementia. So this session is focused on how we can support those living with dementia in the early to mid stage to live well at home through reducing risks and managing symptoms to support independence. My name is Beth. I am the training manager here at Alzheimer's and Dementia Support Services, otherwise known as ADSS. So we are an independent Kent-based charity with over 30 years experience. We deliver life-changing services for people with dementia, their carers, from pre-diagnosis throughout their experience of dementia. And today I'm joined by two of our brilliant dementia coordinators who support people to live independently every day. So this is Becca and Julie, and they're going to share real experiences and practical strategies. And I will let them introduce themselves in a few moments after I cover a few housekeeping points. So this session is being recorded and it will be shared. We'll share the slides out, but that also means if you need to step away at any point to revisit any of the info, you can do that on the recordings. But also please note some of the topics we'll discuss today might feel emotional or close to home. So do please take care during today's session. And if you need to step away for that moment, then please do so. Also, just to note, although we've got that extensive knowledge from today's panel, it is for general information and support only. We are not clinicians and we can't provide medical advice. So always speak to a GP or healthcare professional if you've got concerns with anybody's health. So everybody's mics and cameras are switched off, but we do really encourage everyone to take part by using the chat and the Q&A function. Please share your experiences, your tips and approaches as we discuss some of these topics today. So without further ado, let's get going. So Julie, if you're all right to please introduce yourself and a little bit about your background.
Yep, lovely. Thank you, Beth. So, yes, my name's Julie. I'm a dementia coordinator for ADSS. So, a little bit of a background about myself. So, previously, I worked in the corporate world and then went into working in customer service-based roles. Did that for many years and then got to a point in my life that I wanted to do something more rewarding and joined Alzheimer's and Dementia Support Services 4 years ago. And I can't believe how quickly that time's actually gone. So within my time at ADSS, I've actually covered 2 areas since I've been there. Each coordinator gets their own specific area of people to support. I started off in one area and transferred to another area, and I now support people in that particular area from 4 GP surgeries. Also in my time, we run lots of events, so we go out and talk to people, but also I am responsible for doing training events, generally with the staff. So if there's any sort of up-to-date training needed by staff, I actually pitch in and help and get the staff all on board with new procedures, etc. But yes, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Julie. Yeah, your insight's going to be really helpful today. And Becca, will you please introduce yourself and a little bit about your background?
Yes, thank you. So I'm Becca. I've worked in care and memory clinics over the past 10 years plus, and I've been with ADSS for 3 years now as a dementia coordinator, and I cover an area in West Kent. And I also support Judy with training staff as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So let's dive into the session today. I first want to start the conversation really just by reframing some of the stigmas around dementia and maybe some of those assumptions out there that happen when a diagnosis occurs. Maybe those thoughts of loss of independence, or that person is no longer able to make decisions, or maybe that residential care is needed. People will often ask, is it safe for them to be alone? What if they fall? What if they get lost? What if they forget to eat or take medication? And although these concerns are valid and definitely needing to be addressed, it's really important to discuss that removing independence shouldn't be the first approach to reduce risk. We want to balance that with safety, dignity, and independence. So I just want to ask you guys on the panel, Julie and Becca, what does it look like in practice to keep dignity and that person's voice at the centre of support when we're implementing some of these strategies we'll talk about today?
I think, sort of from my point of view, it is about keeping that person, as you've just said, Beth, as independent as possible, to let them carry on with their normal life for as long as they can, and just step in and offer the support when things start to change or the support needs to go in. Because if we tend to jump in too soon and take all of their independence from them, it's not a good thing. We want them to live the life that they've led previously for as long as possible.
Absolutely. And Becca, what do you think that the difference does that make to how support is received when that person's kept at the centre?
Yeah, I mean, sort of mirror what Judy said, really. I've got an example. I did a visit with a family, and the daughters were concerned that she wasn't taking her medication, but actually she was writing it down and ticking it off herself. So she still kept that independence of, taking a medication, and her daughters didn't need to worry because she was doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. So throughout some of these practical strategies we'll discuss today, I think it's really important that we keep that person at the heart of these decisions, so including them in any support that gets implemented. And like Becca's just mentioned there, actually thinking about what is that person doing independently currently, and how can we build on that or make it easier for them to maintain that task independently. So one of the first things we'll talk about today to cover some of those strategies is the environment. I think that's one of the biggest factors that can support or hinder independence, is that physical home environment. So we know when there are cognitive changes in the brain, people can experience their environment differently. They might feel lost in the home. They might not recognise certain rooms or items. Maybe losing some of those internal prompts that help us, for example, get a drink or go to the loo, even struggling with step-by-step processes to complete some of those tasks. There's lots of different difficulties, and they will all be caused by different changes in the brain. So it's really important that we take a very person-centered approach to work out what is it my loved one's barriers are and find a solution that works for that issue. So I'm going to pop a couple of different ideas here on the screen that we'll discuss as a panel. So for example, here we've got task breakdown. Maybe if we know there's certain tasks somebody struggles with, can we break that down in that area that they're going to complete that task? Can we use different picture cards to identify where things are in the home, signage? It might be contrasting colours if we can see that people locating certain objects are difficult, and breakdown of tasks as well. So do either of you have examples we can discuss of where changes like these or tools like this have improved independence?
Yeah, I mean, you've actually got a picture there, exactly what I was going to mention, with the red toilet seat and lid. So a family that I was actually supporting, they had the typical white toilet lid to the toilet, and the lady in advanced stages couldn't actually identify the fact that the lid on the toilet was shut. So she would constantly sit onto the actual toilet lid, and she would be going to the toilet. So exactly as that picture, we discussed the options. What can we do to support her? The family managed to get hold of some red sort of sticky back plastic. They covered the seat in red, and that actually sort of drew her eye to it, because the toilet seat being white didn't then blend back into the, or should I say being red now, didn't blend into the background. So it actually drew her eye to it to recognise the fact that she then needed to lift the lid on the toilet. So visual recognition really can make a big difference, and it's all trial and error. Just give something a go, and hopefully it'll work, and we do see results.
That's a really good example, and such a great example where without this kind of almost creative thinking, that person might have, start to use incontinence pads, or that piece of her independence and dignity might have been taken away and changed. So that is a really, really great example, definitely. Becca, did you have any specific examples where you've given these tips or advice and someone has figured out the specific barrier that supported somebody?
Yeah, I can think of one. I had a family, and the husband was getting a little bit stressed with his wife moving things around the house, because in the kitchen they were all white cupboards, and she didn't know where things were going to be. But it turns out that she was actually getting very anxious about the garage that she wanted sorting out, because it had lots of bits in there, and that was causing her stress indoors as well. So we had lots of discussions, and I said to the family about the notices that you've got there with the example of the pants and the shirt. I said similar to that, but for the kitchen items. So like a picture of a cup and a sign saying that, and also to help her reorganise the garage. And it turned out that that settled her, and the labels also helped her around the kitchen to be more independent with making things as well.
Amazing. That is such a good example as well, where part of this almost theory of how to identify those barriers, a big part of that is communication, and actually asking these prompting questions. Ask your loved one how they feel about things, because that example there, we've identified actually that those behaviours are happening because she was stressed about something else. She was moving those things around because she had that in the back of her mind, that she needed to do that task, but she wasn't able to communicate that and make that clear. So we definitely want to use observation, figuring out what is that specific barrier, and communication and those prompting, probing questions to really dig a bit deeper. Use some of these detective skills to figure out what solutions might work for these barriers. So I next want to talk about an area that lots of families experience concerns with when someone lives alone, which is walking about and potentially getting lost. So can you, either of you, talk a little bit about why walking about happens, why it occurs?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Julie, do you want to go?
Yeah. Okay. So I wasn't sure if Becca was going to start there. Yeah. So I mean, there's different reasons why this can happen, and really, it's just trying to see, is there a particular trigger? Is there a particular time of day that this happens? It's different with each individual person, but it's really sort of being very observant of the situation. It could be that there's something that's on their mind that's bothering them, that they need resolved. They've got unanswered questions. They can't understand something. Sometimes it's just perhaps that they're feeling sort of a little bit agitated, frustrated. That they sort of want to do something, but they're not too sure how to sort of get that emotion across, that they're feeling unsettled. But it's really just trying to identify particular time of day or things that are triggering it, and just do a little bit of detective work really, and just look for the signs or the reasons behind it.
Absolutely, that detective work is key in a lot of the things we'll talk about today. And Becca, can you discuss maybe some of the best safety measures to put in place where we're concerned about walking about and getting lost? So we know we don't want to immediately prevent somebody from living alone when this is a risk. We can put some measures in place before that. What measures do you see working a lot of the time?
Well, I've seen families get trackers for people's keys to go on there, or ones that are like watches as well with GPS trackers on, so that they can see where they're going. And if they do get lost, they can press the button and have some guidance of how to get back home. Also, door sensors as well, so that people are alerted for when people are opening the door. And as Judy said, they can do some detective work and find out where they want to go. And yeah.
Definitely. I know you had a good example of actually considering how much of a risk is that person being posed to when they are leaving the house. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I had a family who the wife was at 3 o'clock every day, going to the front door and trying to go out. And it really frustrated the husband, because he said, "Oh, I'm worried that she's going to get lost." And it turns out that she was going to collect the children, but she wasn't able to go to the school and do that anymore. So all she wanted to do was sort of walk up and down the path. But that met the needs that she had to get out the door. So I advised on the door sensors, so that he would know when the door was being opened and when she would come back in again as well. So if it was longer than, let's say, 10 minutes, he could sort of go out after her and support her if she needed it.
Absolutely. I think that's a good example where those risks were mitigated. We've got that tracker in place, we've got those sensors in place, but we are allowing that person to actually leave the house, walk up and down the road, and express that need, meet that need for them. But also, a lot of families can worry about this, even if their loved ones have never shown any signs of disorientation when they're out. So we would always recommend you consider if this is how much of a risk is this for your loved one. They may be perfectly safe to walk around their local area on their own. However, if we do have those concerns, there's lots of different technology available to put things in place. We would never recommend locking somebody in the house. That is a deprivation of liberty. And the risk posed to them in an emergency is far greater than the potential risk posed when we've got all this technology in place. We also definitely recommend organising the Herbert protocol, which is something our dementia coordinators can help with. And Julie, can you just quickly explain what the Herbert protocol does and how that can mitigate risks in these situations?
Yeah, so basically, let's take the scenario that the worst has happened. Your loved one has gone out and they have got lost. So basically, the Herbert protocol is a form that can actually be filled out in advance if you perhaps feel that you may be facing this situation, or there's a potential later at some point. And it's basically got all of the emergency information on there that the police are going to want to know if they're going to go out and do a search. So it has information about the person. You can actually even put a photograph on there. So if it comes to the point that they did need to go out and do a search, it actually bypasses a big chunk of their time, whereas they would be gathering this information from you. They've already got it on record. So it's something that's there quickly for you to sort of basically hand over to the services, so they can actually find the loved one quicker if, as I say, unfortunately that scenario has occurred.
Yeah, definitely. So it's really useful and vital that is in place if anybody does have any tendencies to get lost. Okay, so next we're going to talk about reducing the risk of falls. For anybody who attended our earlier webinar in the week, we discussed the huge impact that falls can have on people living with dementia, and the impact on well-being, and that domino effect that can occur, especially if hospitalisation is needed from falls. So we're just going to talk through a little bit more some of the ways we can reduce falls, And yeah, I just want to ask Julie, what is the most common falls risks that you actually see when you're out and about in the community in people's homes?
Okay, the first thing I'd say is with somebody that has a diagnosis. First of all, it's about keeping things as normal as possible in their actual environment, because they tend to do things very much on a pattern, or very much routine of how they've always done something. So try to keep their environment as set as they're used to it. Don't drastically go changing where the furniture sits, etc. It's also basically sort of looking at the environment to declutter it. So things common, one of the main things is if people have got sort of rugs on the floor, people tend to trip on them because people tend to shuffle a little bit more, and you'll find that obviously they've got more risk of tripping on things like rugs. So it's just removing any potential hazards that you can find in that environment. People tend to fall out of bed as well. That's a big one, because obviously when they tend to want to get out of bed, they're tired. They've also sort of got a little bit of disorientation because they're waking up. So again, it's what can we do to actually balance the environment again? So that could be putting certain equipment in. It could be making sure that they've got like a handrail or something to grab on next to the bed. It might be having sensor lights. So that seems to be a good one that I've recommended quite a few times to people, because as somebody sort of turns around in bed, puts their feet down on the floor to get up, a sensor light can go on, and that actually lights their way. So that helps them again from sort of preventing falls by looking at different lighting and things that can help the environment. And then things like a crash mat as well if somebody's prone to falls. So it's all about looking at the actual environment. What can we do to reduce that risk, but also what can we put in place to actually sort of aid them with the reasons that they are falling? So if that's out of bed, is that the sensor lights, is that the crash mat, or if it's in the living room, is it keeping things decluttered, is it removing mats, etc.
Definitely. And I know if anyone does have concerns over mobility or increased falls, then referrals to frailty teams or the falls prevention teams can make a huge difference. And your dementia coordinators, if you are in our area, can make those referrals for you. So I talk within falls, and previously we've spoken a lot about technology aids that are going to mitigate some of these risks of getting lost or falls. So let's talk a bit more about some of the technology that is out there and what else it can support with, because it is a great way to support with safety and independence. Different tools can help with orientation and memory. We've got dementia clocks. You can get simple ones from online. Or Recall Q and My Home Helper. One is an app you can have on an iPad, and one is a specific device you order. They're both amazing. You can send different reminders, messengers. You can even have between a specific time period set up so the camera acts as a motion sensor, and if it's triggered, say at night time, someone's gotten out of bed, it can offer a reassuring message from a family member to reassure someone, you're at home and you're okay, and get back into bed when you're comfortable, to really help orient people. So there's all sorts on here that we can have a little talk through. Becca, are you all right to discuss maybe some of the benefits of some of these other technology aids?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the medication dispensers on there. That's one that I recommend quite a lot, especially with people who might not be remembering to take their medication as often by ticking it off and things. That's a good one. The Alexa reminders as well, or a lot of people I see have Alexa Show with the little screen on, so that can sort of act as a dementia clock as well, depending on the background that the family choose to have on there. I have a lot of people that use that for sort of night and day as well, so a little picture of the sun for daytime and nighttime as a moon. The trackers There's lots of different ones you can get on Amazon, or you can go to, I mean, we're based in Kent, so we have TELS who can support with gaining access to these things as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I know Kindy, they are another assistive technology service within our area, but even if you're out of area, they do a really helpful virtual house online that you can move through, and there's hundreds of different adaptive technologies in the house, and it gives you links to them, information on how they support. So do take a look at that if you think adding some technology aids could be useful. But I do just want to talk about how do we successfully implement some of these, because there's stories maybe where someone's put a property exit alarm on and not maybe included their loved one, and they've turned it off. That what is this beeping every time I open this door? Unplug that. So do you guys have any tips on how to successfully implement some of this technology, maybe dementia clocks or alarms, some of these different aids?
So obviously, as regards to the aids, it just really all depends on sort of the individual circumstances as to what ones we would recommend and how. I think it's sort of just really sort of having a detailed conversation sort of regarding that situation and what's available. Yeah, there's lots of different, as I say, where there's a will, there's a way. The other thing I would also recommend as well is you get a lot of online shops for dementia as well that have all sorts of bits of equipment. And even just through Googling things myself, I've come across things that have been real lifelines and game changers for families. So if you've got a problem, you can guarantee that usually somebody else has had that prior to you, and there is a piece of equipment that can help with it. So it's definitely worth doing your research, or sort of if you've got a dementia coordinator or you want to speak to us, then it's something that we can guide you on because somebody has had that issue before.
Definitely, that's a really good point of maybe if you don't want to go through a specific service or wait for a referral, a lot of these things are available on Amazon and online. I also just want to quickly mention that circadian rhythm smart light bulb, because there might be some questions around that. That is a new piece of technology which mimics the circadian rhythm throughout the day through the light getting brighter and dimmer throughout the day as the sun would. And what that does is actually been proven to support with sundowning and some behavioural expressions of need like agitation or pacing. It's actually been proven to calm people down after a few weeks of use, and that is being delivered in Medway at the minute. So really exciting piece of technology there. But yeah, brilliant discussion there. Someone did actually send in a question: is there a door alarm for someone living alone to alert the family a person's going out? So I'm glad that we've covered that with those property exit alarms, and how to really successfully implement them by including that person in the discussion. So the next topic we're going to talk about is a big topic that comes up a lot, is driving. So it is often an emotional topic because it's not just about transport, it is somebody's independence, and a lot of the time it's a big signal to their freedom. But one in 3 people, sorry, living with dementia do actually still drive, and safely do so. So that's really important to get that message out there, because a lot of people might actually assume a diagnosis means I will automatically lose my license, which isn't the case. However, if you do receive a diagnosis, you must tell the DVLA and the car insurer straight away. If not, fines can occur. So it is really important to have that awareness. In some cases, the diagnosing doctor might tell that person, I don't think you're safe to drive. However, that will only happen if it's very evident that that person is further along their dementia stages. But we can have tests through drivability to test somebody's safe to drive. So Becca, are you able to discuss that, how drivability works a little bit?
Yeah, so drivability is essentially a driving test to assess someone's ability to drive, how safe they are on the road, whether they understand the signs and the signals, everything sort of ability wise that you need to drive, really. And I have got an example of someone who was diagnosed, and they were quite worried that they would, as you just said, Beth, oh, I've got dementia, I can't drive anymore. But he was sticking to routes that he knows as well, which kept his independence, but he had closed down how far he went as well. And then his family added a tracker onto his key rings as well, because sometimes he would get lost getting a home. And they can also monitor how fast he's going as well, so that they were sort of appeased by the risk as well,
Yeah.
because they were monitoring that. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I know, is it Life 360 that helps
Yeah, I
with
think,
that?
yeah, it's Life 360, yeah.
You can see speed on there. It's a really useful app, even just for family members in general. It's really helpful to have that reassurance. Julie, if somebody's license maybe is taken away, is there any support people can put in place to help them still feel like they've got that bit of independence going out and about?
I mean, I will be honest, this is never an easy conversation that you're going to have with a loved one, because obviously driving is most people, if you've been driving for a long time, it's your lifeline, it's your way of getting out, it's your way of socializing, it's your way of getting things that you need, and it is such a tough conversation. Sometimes, the person can be very accepting of the fact, that they are aware that they've got their diagnosis, and they are aware that, they wouldn't want to endanger anybody else or themselves. But obviously you are going to come across those situations where the person's very against stopping driving when it's needed. And really, it is just a case of trying to find a solution, to offer them alternatives. So, yes, you might not be able to drive, but, you can get taxis. There is this service that can help you to get this place. Or do you know what? It doesn't matter, because we can take you to this. So it's finding solutions, pinpointing the main areas where they're going to miss having that vehicle, miss having that independence. What can we do as that solution to resolve that issue that they've got, to take those worries away? And I will say, obviously going around and seeing families, everybody deals with it differently, but sometimes the situation is they do tell white lies to the person. Whether you deem that right or wrong, you have to do what works for you. And I tend to find sometimes where the loved one might say, I've had to take the car, Dad, to go and get it serviced, and unfortunately, or the MOT or whatever you're saying, it didn't pass, it wasn't safe. And it's actually taking that reason away. It's not them as a person why they can't drive, it was the car that was the problem. And sometimes if you sort of take the emphasis off of their diagnosis and that it's them that's the issue, they tend to accept it a little bit more. Oh, well, it was the car, it wasn't me. So yeah, there's no right or wrong way, but as I say, it's about finding solutions to help them have that independence, and yeah, what way you tackle it and what way they're going to take that news in the best way.
Definitely. There's some really excellent points made there, and helpful tips as well, for maybe if that person is refusing to stop driving, but also how to reassure them that you can still get to the places that you want to go, have those conversations, make your loved one feel valued and heard in what matters to them. So yeah, that's really some great points. Thank you so much, Julie. So next we're going to talk about planning ahead, which actually I think is received a little bit better than some of those driving conversations, is what both of you have previously said to me. But I think it still can feel like a very difficult topic to talk about. We are talking about maybe a time where somebody isn't going to be as able. So we'd want to empower people in the moment to document those decisions, express their preferences, and stay in control of what they want to happen. So can I ask both of you, what advice do you have for families broaching this topic, and what ways can we document wishes about the future?
Oh, sorry, you going, Julie?
Yeah.
Becca, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Julie, yeah, go ahead, Julie.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, for me, actually, I mean, we do a lot of home visits and I see a lot of families, and actually, I don't get much resilience to this part of the conversation. We do bring it up as a topic because it is something that all of us should think about, regardless of whether or not we've got a dementia diagnosis, or, you know, if we're still sort of in our 20s or 30s, or whatever our scenario is life throws us curveballs. And we never know what way it's going to go. So that's the way I tend to put it to people is, you know, do you not want to have your wishes for the future made known? Do you not want to have a voice about what you want, and what you want to get in place? So, yeah, I find actually this one is not so much of an awkward conversation as we think. And I think we tend to bury our head in the sand. We don't want to ask these questions because it is awkward. But by actually saying, you know, do you want to actually sort of have what you would like put in place? You know, isn't it something that you would like us to know your wishes? That people tend to actually open up, and they're quite open and honest, and don't really ever have much of an issue with this area. Obviously, there will be people, but it's people are better at it than you think.
That's a really good point, definitely. And Becca, what kind of things can we document on power of attorney with care plans? What can we protect and document here?
So, I mean, it's person's wishes, really. And I would just mirror what Julie said, really. It's about having that person at the heart of everything and having a conversation. And as Julie said, you know, people like to talk about these things because ultimately it's their future. And I think the most common thing I come across is if I have lasting power of attorney, that means I can't make my decisions. And I think what people need to remember is it's obviously in place, but it's for somebody to talk about that person in their best interest if they cannot make that decision for themselves, and to have their wishes well documented on the health lasting power of attorney and the finance, the advanced care plan as well. You can get the respect forms and the do not resuscitate forms as well if that's what they need. That can be done by medical professionals. Yeah, that's it really in a nutshell for what we discuss.
Yeah, no, that's really useful to know. I think like that you said, Julie, no matter what age you are, having that power of attorney in place can be vital because you just don't know what life is going to throw at you. One of the solicitors we used to work closely with would always champion that message and would say, actually, my brother was in his 40s, he had an accident, he wasn't able to express his wishes while he was in hospital unconscious, and us as a family wanted to go with one direction of some medical choices, but we actually didn't have any right and say in those medical decisions over the doctors. Even if someone is married, if you've got a husband or wife, lasting power of attorney has the highest rights to actually express those needs and talk on somebody else's behalf. So dementia or not, it's really important, but specifically when we know changes are likely to happen, getting this done as early as possible is vital, because we've all seen those cases where a lasting power of attorney isn't in place, and decisions aren't been able to make that maybe we know that person would have wanted to have. So definitely look into that. I would also say if a dementia diagnosis is in place, it will be useful to use a solicitor because they can do a mental capacity assessment to show this person has the capacity to sign this. They currently understand this decision, and that power of attorney cannot then be questioned later on in time. Before a diagnosis, we don't need solicitors. We can get that power of attorney in place ourselves very cheaply. So definitely look into these things about planning ahead. So the last topic we're going to talk about today is maybe some of the decisions we might want to document in those care plans, in those wishes. Which is care at home. If someone is beginning to find everyday tasks difficult, we can look at home care to support that person's independence and keep them at home for as long as possible. And the right time to do this will be different for everyone, but some signs might be struggling to cook themselves or maybe neglecting personal care. Maybe not changing clothes as often, or even just not managing medication on their own. So the main questions we have around this is how do we actually introduce this, and how do we get it organised? So I'll go to you, Becca, first. Can you tell us the best way to introduce care, especially for someone maybe reluctant to accept that support, because it can be a really huge thing to accept a stranger into your home and implement this?
Yeah, of course. I actually have a good example of this. I supported a family, and she was living alone, very independent, been very independent all of her life. And she was starting to struggle to cook herself and sort of do things around the house. But she was reluctant for any support to come in because in her mind, she was doing it absolutely fine. So I suggested to the family to start with a befriender service so they could come in, build that rapport with her and say to her, okay, shall we do some washing? Oh yes, let me do it. So although she had the support in and they were actually helping her do it, she had that control over the situation, and cooking her meals as well. They would sort of do it together. And then as time went on, they built up that relationship for her to have support with her personal care as well, because she started to struggle with that. But she was more accepting in that instance because she'd built up the rapport with the carers initially.
Definitely. I think that's such an important way of approaching it. I think, especially for those people we know have that strong sense of pride and maybe struggling with that denial, when services just want to go full, send carers in, let me put you in the shower, can I help you get changed? Imagine somebody asking you that yourself. It's a huge task. So definitely starting small, building that rapport is really vital, definitely. Julie, can you talk us through a little bit about the process of actually finding care, maybe privately or through the local authority if people are funded?
Okay, so yeah, it really all depends. It comes down to the bottom line, who's going to fund it. If basically there's a system that they class you as if you have 23,200, or the person, should I say, in their own right has 23,250 in savings, then they class that person automatically as self-funding. If it's below that amount, then there's a little bit of a line there as to who would actually be paying for the full cost. So you've got two routes. You can go through social services. So a referral gets put through to them for what's called a care needs assessment. So that's where social services would actually come out. They would meet the person. They would ask them to do certain things. They would look at the home environment, what type of support they've got, what they need. And they will actually then, after the assessment, go away and decide as to what package of care they feel that person needs or what's appropriate to their needs. They will then put it to panel for it to be agreed. They will then do a financial assessment to deem, can this person afford all the care? Can they afford to pay for some of the care, so partial payment alongside social services? Or obviously in other cases it may be that the person needs full funding for that care package. So social services will work from the point of assessing the person to actually then appointing the care agency and putting them in place. So that's one route. The second route is if a person can actually self-fund that package of care. You don't actually have to go through the social services route. It's like any other service. You can actually approach a care agency of your choice. They can come out, do their own assessment, and between yourself and the care agency, you can actually employ a package of care to start in that scenario. If obviously you was employing your own care agency, there's certain websites, there's information that you can be sent or read online, and you can actually check out different care agencies. They have what's called CQC ratings, and there's feedback online where you can actually look at the feedback that's come back about those particular care agencies. So yeah, you can either go through social services or you can do it independently. However, I will say with social services, there is quite a long, lengthy waiting list on that one. So my best advice, if anybody can see that they're going to possibly need care on the horizon, don't do it to a point where you're sort of desperately needing that support in place. It's best to get the ball rolling sooner rather than later and get the process underway. So hopefully at the point that you need that care actually really in place, you've already sort of got half the process, going forward.
That's a really, really good piece of advice there, definitely. And also what you were saying about if you are self-funding, so if you've got more than that 23k mark, go and empower yourself by looking into those different care agencies, because I do remember some of my own caseload where families would go through social services just not knowing how to navigate or where to look, and waited that really lengthy place just to be told, well, you're self-funding, so here's a leaflet and off you go. So if you can do that research yourself, go on those websites. So homecare.co.uk is one of the main sites for those reviews that Julie was talking about, and that can be really useful to weigh up some of these different care agencies. So Becca, you worked in care for a long time. What things do we want to be what questions do we want to be asking different care agencies when sourcing care, especially if it's for a loved one with dementia?
So I would be checking if they can meet that person's needs. So, have they got enough staff to support that person? The CQC rating as well, checking on that. Are they good? Have they got good, well-trained staff?
Dementia
are they
trained
able?
as well.
Yeah, dementia trained. Yeah, exactly. Will it be the same person or a group of two carers, let's say, going in? Because as we know, someone with dementia needs that consistency as well to not only build up that rapport, but to trust that person to support with other things, and whether they can cover sickness as well. Again, you're looking at how much staff they've got.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think they're all really key points. Definitely the advice that all of our DCs can support with when maybe you're balancing which of those care companies to use. What are you going to say?
And I think, I was just going to say as well, whether they have male and female carers, because people do have preference. And it is about meeting their needs in that way as well.
Definitely. Absolutely. So that is the last of our topics today before I end. So I just want to see if we do have any questions to pose to our dementia coordinators. I'm going to have a little look through the chat here. So we don't have any questions in the Q&A, but if anyone has any thoughts on anything we've discussed so far, or any further questions, then please do pop them in the chat, and we can pick the ears of Julie and Becca. So, Anne, you've asked for the name of the company that has the virtual house, and Luann has kindly explained it's Kindy. I will make sure that the link to that is provided when we send the slides and the recording round. But searching Kindy, KYNDI, virtual house will get you there as well. I can see Laura's kindly put that in the chat, which is useful. But if there are no other questions, somebody stop me if any pop up. I just want to briefly cover the rest of our services. So we've spoken about our dementia coordinator service today, our hospital dementia coordinator service in our previous webinar, but we've also got our wellbeing groups who offer peer support, fun activities, connection, as well as carer learning. And we will be launching our carer learning programs, more of those soon, so look out for those. We have our day centre, the Beacon, in Dartford, Gravesham and Swanley area in Northfleet. And we're also doing lots of work to support underrepresented communities, and really campaign to improve dementia awareness here. So before I finish, there's just a couple of links and phone numbers for our further information. And I just want to say thank you so much to Becca and Julie for your expertise and insight today. I hope it's been really helpful for those listening. If it has been helpful, then please share our work, share some of these tips and approaches. The more people that know about us, the more support we can get out there, the more people we can reach. So if you want more information on those services, future webinars, training, getting involved with our fundraising, any partnership working or volunteering, if you're able, every contribution makes a positive difference to the lives of people affected by dementia. So thank you so much for everybody watching. If you haven't already signed up to our upcoming webinar next week, that's the last one in this series, which is all about caring, protecting yourself and your relationship as a carer for somebody with dementia, then do sign up here. But other than that, thank you all so much for joining today. And yeah, do take care. Thank you so much. Bye.